Hello and welcome to Post-Exertional Mayonnaise podcast, and we're talking about grief today. And I'm joined by dSavannah, who lives in Georgia in the USA. So it's lovely to have you with us. Um, yeah, thanks for joining us. Do you want to just share a little bit about your chronic illness journey, dSavannah, and then we'll sort of we'll go from there. So yeah, it's good to have you.
Sure. Thank you so much. Hopefully your audience will forgive all my notes. I like to be prepared because otherwise it falls out of my head. Obviously, I probably won't read everything in here. Um, and I think that this topic of grief is really important. There's, not a lot of written about grief. There's occasional blog posts by Spoonies, the occasional meme. And we also have the idea of what is termed the good cripple, which I hate that we have to be that way. They say, "Oh, so and so never complained," which implies if you do complain or vent about your issues, then there's something wrong with you, that you're not supposed to do that. So we're not allowed to feel grief or anger, and
Mm.
grief is such a huge part of chronic illness. Like this meme, some days are incredibly heavy with loss. And, I miss who I was before ME, and it hurts. I'll never be her again. Um, I also kind of hate the term journey,
Yeah, sorry
but
if I used that. I think
there's no other really good word for it, is there?
there's not. No.
I mean,
Story, maybe.
yeah,
Yeah, I don't
story.
know.
There's going to be an end. It didn't, and it's just we're all doing the best we can, and we don't really have a destination in mind. We're just doing one step at a time. So my journey is a bit hard to untangle. My MECFS onset was gradual. It's pretty detailed. But to summarize, I have chronic debilitating fatigue. I have global chronic pain, hence my lovely accessory of an ice pack on my neck. I'm also wearing a back brace and an ice pack on my back, which I'm trying to, hide with my semi-attractive sweater. And I have insomnia. I have sleep issues, vision impairment, mobility issues, GERD, brain fog, cognitive impairment. Lots and lots of things. Fibromyalgia, spinal issues, costochondritis, glaucoma, hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, blah blah blah. So I had a lot of the symptoms most of my life, but I was what you would call functional. Like I didn't know I was sick or what have you. I thought it was kind of normal. And I spent 20 years in marketing management. 10 years I was taught college, sort of all at the same time, and 10 years as a working photographer and artist.
Mm.
So again, I had a lot of symptoms most of my life. When I was 8 or 9, my jaw locked open.
Oh no.
Symptom TMJD was terrifying. I mean, I'm a little kid. I don't know what's going on. Um, when I was 11, I got diagnosed with scoliosis. This is a much more recent photo, obviously, of my spine. And, everyone says, oh, it's mild, but it still causes problems. I've had depression since I was about 11. I had to get glasses when I was 10. Had an abscess on my tooth when I was 10. I mean, what little kid has an abscess on their tooth? And turns out it's because of my GERD. Had migraines and insomnia since high school, joint pain since high school, chronic bronchitis, just, all these problems that I just lived with. I didn't know how else to do or
Mm.
be. And I worked all the time. Like I said, all of those things. Working artist. I was in the paper several times. This is me when I lived in Harrison, Arkansas. Um, I edited books, I wrote, I did all these things. And then I also um, love to go antiquing, hiking, reading. I was a singer in a band
Mm.
for a couple
Wow.
years. Um, and I was a type A perfectionist. I did all the things, and it was just who I was. And anytime I tried to discuss health issues, I was dismissed. Like when I was 25, I think I went in to see about my GERD because it was bothering me. And the doctors all but patted me on my head and told me I was too young and sent me away. Um, I finally, in my early 30s, saw a specialist for TMJD. There's no cure. You can get what looks like a mouth guard that you're supposed to wear. And well, I stopped wearing it after a while. Um, when I was 32, I had a mental breakdown, couldn't get out of bed for 3 days, I don't know if probably everyone knows how I was feeling. And I finally started getting psychological help. It had always been, something you don't talk about. When I was 33, I saw a gastroenterologist who said, "You have GERD, you have really bad GERD, and based on your symptoms, you've had it your whole entire life." That's why I had an abscess in my tooth when I was so
Mm.
young. Acid was eating away at my teeth. When I was 39 in 2010, I actually had surgery to fix the GERD, which unfortunately, due to the EDS, has failed partially. So EDS
Mm.
explains all the joint pain that I had my whole life. Uh, can cause, for very unscientific term, floppy organs. So that explains why the surgery failed. So then, um, again, I was working normal. Like everyone else in the world who's not chronically ill. And I lost my job in a buyout in September 2011 and had a really hard time finding another. And that's when I really started falling apart. Um, I we didn't know what was wrong with me. I had increased migraine frequency. I was exhausted all the time, but I couldn't sleep. Some days I couldn't get out of bed, trouble completing things. It was just like all of the symptoms of ME that I didn't even know ME existed because no one talked
Mm.
about this disease. Um, Started hitting me, and I kept trying and trying, and it didn't make sense why I couldn't succeed because I had been successful in everything I did up until then. And since I lost my job, I lost my connection to the community, I lost my identity. And my husband and I were in Arkansas at the time, and we decided to move back to Georgia, um, which is where we were from. Thought it'd be easier for me to get a job and be closer to family and all of that. And I saw a GP in 2013 who, again, told me there's nothing wrong with you, you're fine. So I got a job teaching at the largest university in the state, a full-time job, and
Wow.
it I love teaching. I love teaching. I loved impacting
Mm.
students. Um, but it broke me. During that time, in 2014, I saw a rheumatologist who diagnosed me with fibromyalgia, the costochondritis, and osteoarthritis. So I was starting to get believed that there was something wrong with me in 2014. So in fall semester, the university screwed with my teaching schedule, and that's when I completely broke. I had to quit my
Mm.
job. I haven't worked since December 2014. Um, I thought I would get better and we'd figure out what was wrong with me. And obviously, it's a decade later. I've lost a decade of my life.
Mm.
And in April 2015, I started seeing a holistic doctor, and then I got my diagnosis of ME/CFS in 2017. So, really, since then, I've just been trying to manage my symptoms because, as you know, there's no myalgic encephalomyelitis has no biomarker, has no treatment, has no cure. We're all just, throwing things at the wall and hoping they help. I'm sure, like you and many other um, patients have, boxes of failed medications, and you're like, what do I, what do I do with this crap?
Yeah.
Um, and so since 2014, I've seen 30 different kinds of doctors.
Wow.
I'm seeing a new one in April. Turns out not probably, I have POTS, which I never thought I did because I
Mm.
don't faint, but I got a heart
Mm.
rate monitor and pooh, my heart rate goes up, just going to the bathroom. It's really high. And from 2015 to 2022, I've gone 15,168 miles to see doctors.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's really long.
Oh,
Like I
yeah.
said, tried to summarize it, but that's kind of how my medical journey is. And along the way, I've been, of course, collecting med records, my life with chronic illness, notebooks every year
Mm.
with going to see the doctors, notes from visiting the doctors and writing down everything they told me because I wouldn't remember everything. The legal pads for when I had to call a doctor or insurance so I could write everything down and know everything later because, again, be out of my head. So that's pretty much my journey in a very long
Mm.
nutshell.
It feels like sometimes when you're dealing with so many different conditions all together, it must feel like sort of almost like a part-time, full-time job just keeping track of all that. It sounds like really hard work for you.
It totally is a full-time job. I actually have a blog post that I wrote called Chronic Illness, the Worst Job in the World. Um,
Mm.
it is a full-time job. If I'm not getting ready for a doctor appointment, I'm fighting with insurance to make them pay for the appointment. Or I'm
Mm.
calling the doctor and asking them why they billed it wrong. Or, or calling and asking, you said you were going to prescribe this medication. Where is it? Call the pharmacy. Well, we don't have it. Doctor, well, we sent it in. You know, there's, yes, it's
Mm.
horrible, horrible full-time job.
Mm. And it's exhausting as well, isn't it? Keeping track of all that. It's just, yeah, it's
It
it's
is.
hard work.
It is.
Yeah, yeah. So like, there must be a real sense of grief then, having like for me, having to give up work. Is that one of the big things for you that's frustrating? Apart from the full-time job managing your chronic illness, but like the work thing, it sounds like that was something you really enjoyed.
It was. I mean, well, and the whole thing that prompted this interview was the response to another post that I wrote on Blue Sky, which was I went through the textbooks I taught from and pulled all the tabs and stickies with my notes.
Mm.
I mean, that's all of those indicate that's work that I put into to teach those kids. That's all the students I taught. That's also all the students I didn't get to teach and didn't get
Mm.
to touch their lives over, the past decade. And at first, as I was cleaning them out, I was fine, and then I was sobbing. And it was stolen from me. My other jobs were stolen
Mm.
from me. Um, so yeah.
Mm. Are there things are there things that like instigate grief for you just in your daily life, and how do you sort of like manage those things when they crop up?
Um, well, so some things that crop up that cause grief that seems to be smacking me in the face a lot lately. I don't know if you've heard of
Mm.
the I Would Be Here If I Could project.
Mm. Yes, I've spoken to Alison on our podcast.
Great. Well, I did printed off one of her posts, but I submitted an audio, and I would like to go to Newquay, Cardigan Bay, West Wales, because my husband's great great grandfather, Thomas Jones, was born there in 1842.
Wow.
So, how do I deal with the grief of not ever being able to go there? I don't know. It's a constant.
Mm.
Um, I don't know if you know Brianne Bennis of the podcast No End in Sight,
Mm.
but she wrote on a Medium article, when you are chronically ill or dynamically disabled, you must constantly let go of the person you used to be. So, again, I have to
Mm.
constantly let go of, I'm not going to be able to go to Wales. Um, and when my husband talks about it, obviously I have to be supportive because I don't want him to not go just because I can't. So,
Mm.
there's just reminders everywhere of signs of my lost life. You know, these are piles of medical receipts and crap I need to deal with. This would never have happened in my past life. I was the organization queen, and that would not happen. I used to be a voracious reader, and I kind of had to quit because my brain wouldn't work. And so, I have this
Mm.
pile of books and art just sitting on
Yeah.
the floor because I can't deal with it. I can't, and I don't want to get rid of it. I have hope that someday I will actually be able to do something with it. Um, Sorry, am I answering the question
Yeah,
or
no.
have I?
And I think it's that no, yes, definitely. I think it's that that sense of hope that we live with as well, isn't it? It's like not a tangible hope because it's we kind of like we're living in this kind of in between sort of space that we're living with the grief every day of the chronic illness and the fatigue and the exhaustion and not being able to do those things that we want to do, but at the same time there's always a question mark as to whether there will be some sort of improvement, and that's hard in itself, isn't it? And we have to kind of live with that vague hope, but it's not like a certain hope, is it? It's sort of like a maybe one day. And that's hard. That's really hard to deal
Yeah,
with, isn't it?
it is a vague hope. And then when you do have an improvement, there's always the fear that it will be taken away and you won't be able to
Mm.
continue. Like I worked up one of the things that how I cope or manage my grief is try to do small persistent actions. I couldn't, like I said, I couldn't read for a long while, so I started reading poetry. They're short, you don't have to remember a thing about them.
Mm.
You can enjoy the words, you can enjoy the flow. And then I sort of built up. I started reading short stories, and now I'm reading full books. They're YA
Mhm.
kids books.
Yeah,
So it's
yeah.
not, I'm not reading, Stephen King's 1963, which I really wanted to read, but it's just not going to happen. The thing is this thick. So, I try to hold on to the hope that I'll be able to continue reading, even if it's slow, even if it's not a lot at a time.
Mm.
And I also try to be, grateful for the small things. Um, I read a
Mm.
poem today. Yay. You know,
Nice.
we can't we can't measure our lives the way ableds do, you know. They
Mm.
measure going on vacation or getting a raise or buying a new house. Well, um we we might have to buy a new house, which God, I hope I never have to move again, even though this house is too small. And as you can see, it's way too crowded and there's crap everywhere and I hate it. But, we have to measure, we have to, again, accept small wins. And for a
Mm.
while, I actually had just a little notebook and I'd write, all you have to do today is X. And, it might be call insurance or whatever. And then when I did it, I wrote, you got it done. And, encourage my own self for completing that.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, I did. I folded some laundry this morning, and that was my achievement for the
Woo!
day. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, I messaged a friend, and I just said it's pretty sad, isn't it, that when you sort of like your achievement is folding some laundry and yeah, just making the place look a bit tidier, and it's like that after having a really rough week or I've been in bed most of the time, that's like an achievement, and then acknowledging that is hard in itself, isn't it? The small things because we have to acknowledge that yes, I've achieved that, but it then reminds you of the grief of the fact that actually it's such a minuscule thing on the scale of things that compared to somebody else would do it in 5 minutes without even thinking. And yeah, I think and then it makes it it makes you realize like how small your life is, doesn't it? Somehow
Oh, yes.
it's hard.
Yes. It's,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so small. And, I, yeah, I, that's exactly right. Our lives are small and we have to, one of the ways to cope, and it took a very, very, very long time to learn this, and I'm not exactly very, very good at it, is accepting, well, no, I can't accept it. I can't
Mm.
accept that I'm sick. I can't accept that my life is small. I can't accept it, but I can tolerate it.
Yeah, maybe
I,
that's a good word. Yeah.
I can learn to live within it. And, you know, acceptance is a little too far, but some people
Mm.
can, which is great. But uh,
Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I also cope. I've seen all those doctors, and some people would say that's a waste of time or whatever, but I feel like knowledge is power. And, you know, I could have not gone to the geneticist and learned that I have HEDS, but knowing that explained so much, um, that, when you're chronically ill, there's also the guilt that you feel like you've caused this for yourself.
Mm.
Society, you must not be doing all the right things. So they give you, like you said earlier, before we started recording, we don't want to give advice because everybody's throwing advice at us. And,
Yeah.
you must not have drank the unicorn tears or whatever. But learning about my disease and how diseases and how they all interact and what the best management is, that helps me cope. I can, it's kind of weird, I guess, but all of my marketing skills that I gained in my career, I'm now
Mm.
using to manage my illnesses. So, it wasn't
Mm.
all a complete waste.
Mm. Mm.
Um, I also journal. I didn't for a while and I really wish I had. I just didn't have the energy. And now it's like it lets me to get my thoughts out. And it's also my memory. I can go back and look at, this happened or that happened. And I know we're not giving advice, but I'm going to give this piece of advice because it's really good.
It's
Buy
all right.
a super cheap notebook, like, after school or school. Oh, my mind is blanking. Right after school, they have back to school sales. Um,
Mm.
and you can get a notebook for like 25 cents or a pound or whatever. Get a really cheap notebook that you won't care about and buy some really big fat markers and just scribble in that notebook and just don't censor yourself. Just let it out. I have a page that I one day just covered in expletives. I don't really remember why, but it makes me laugh now.
Mm.
Um, because along with the grief, of course, becomes rage and anger about
Yeah.
what we're dealing with. And so having
Mm.
a notebook to safely let this out is, I think, really, really important thing. A lot of people feel like they don't have anyone they can talk to about their illnesses. They feel like a burden to their families, which, I do as well. But a cheap notebook and some markers can go a long way. The
Mm.
other thing that I do is I keep a gratitude journal. I have been doing it daily since January 1st, 2019. I'm on year 5. And
Mm.
sometimes it's really expletive hard to come up with anything to put in there.
Mm.
But there's always something to be grateful for. So pick a day, any day. If you pick a day, I'll read something out of my
Oh,
gratitude this year.
like recently.
Yeah, any day this year.
Okay. May the 20th.
May 20th. Okay. I'm grateful for the sleep I got.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
obviously Saturday, May 20th was not such a great day, but I still found something to be grateful for. And
Mm-hmm.
also you can use lots of fun pens and different colors to make it. And I really think that has made a huge difference for me because again, it's easy to get mired in the grief and the pain, and trying to find the good can make a huge difference. Um,
Mm.
Sometimes you need a good cry. Just let yourself cry and just let yourself wallow. Of course,
Mm.
the trick is you don't stay there. You can't live in the pit of or in the wallow and the sadness, but sometimes you just have to let yourself feel. And of
Mm.
course, the really expletive thing about crying is it causes PEM. So you
Yeah, it's true. The emotional exertion, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah,
It's, you can't win. Yeah.
no. Um,
Mm.
and then mentioning advice, ignore other people's ideas of what I should do.
Oh,
You
sorry,
know,
I've just lost you.
they people
Oh.
say things like you're in bed too much. You know what? It was only when I started listening to my body and staying in bed and sleeping when it could and wanted to did I start feeling like a normal, ha ha ha,
Mm.
human being again.
Mm.
I also try to listen to meditations. Calm, the Calm app has 2 series on grief. They're
All
technically
right.
for grief over people, but they do
Mm.
do help. Like one of them is about significant loss, and I think becoming chronically ill and losing everything you had before, having it stolen from you, which is more what I feel like it's our lives were stolen, can can help. Sometimes it's really hard to listen to because you just want to say F this.
Mm.
But but
Yeah.
it is something. And then, you know, anytime someone says something nice about me, I like to screenshot it and save it because then I can go look at it later. Like, um, recently I posted about an event that I had worked, um, 10 or 15 years ago. And, one of them said, "You were the best boss I've ever had." And
Mm.
someone responded, "I second that." So, we're, it's another way to remind yourself, because if you don't screenshot, it's gone, it's fleeting, and you get mired again. And, I've had people um, say something like, "You were always so kind to me when blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, I don't remember it, but I'm glad. But it helps me know that, our lives are small. We feel like we can't really make a difference in the world because we can't go, I can't go volunteer anymore. I can't, I can't help in the community. I can't sit behind my desk and do stuff to help people. Um, but those little things of knowing that somebody remembers you and you positively impacted them helps. So that's one of the things that I do. And then online support groups. And you got to find online support
Mm.
groups. And I really think meeting other patients is was was my saving grace, and I've been able to help other new patients who were didn't know what was going on, and I could say, explain, this is like EDS, had never heard of that, and a Facebook friend was talking about all her symptoms. I'm like, those are all my symptoms. Well,
Mm.
turns out I have it. So,
Mm.
oh yeah, and then this quote from Calm: "The answer to the pain of grief is not how to get yourself out of it, but how to support yourself inside of it."
Mm. Yeah. And sometimes it is supporting yourself, isn't it? Because sometimes other people can't, as much as people try and support us. And that's why the kind of wider support networks are really good within the chronic illness community because um, we have to be there for each other because other people within our lives, as much as they try, they can't fully empathize because th- they're not experiencing what we're experiencing. So yeah, it's that's so true. Yeah, definitely.
I mean,
Um,
even, I my husband works from home. We're together all the time, and sometimes I feel like he doesn't even truly understand what I'm going through, even though he's right next to me. But he's not sitting in this body. He's not feeling what I'm
mm,
feeling. He empathizes, and um he does his best to help me. Um,
mm,
like 2 nights ago, I was so crashed. I was just in bed, and I know, the feeling when you're just completely flat and blah and you can't communicate and nothing makes sense. He just brought me food because he knew I needed to eat. Um, because otherwise I would have just, sat there.
mm, mm.
So,
Yeah, well, it's been really good to hear your thoughts and especially some of those really practical things. I like the idea of just having a notebook to scribble kind of expletives in it. I think that's quite a good way of processing that anger sometimes. But yeah, it's I like that and I really hope people will be able to like take some of your little suggestions and use them because I think they're really helpful. And was there anything else you wanted to add before we go?
one other thought: rest. Um,
Hmm.
I kind of feel like um ME turns us back into toddlers. Toddlers can't really
Hmm.
regulate very well. And we have stimulus can crash us, all breathing can crash us. All these things can crash us. And so I feel like sometimes we need to treat ourselves like we're a toddler. Treat ourselves
Hmm.
kindly. Get a snack, get a nap, go lay down, hug your stuffy, watch something on TV that has no meaning whatsoever, but that will help distract your mind. And be gentle with yourself. This being a chronically ill is hard, and
Mm.
it's not our fault. You know,
Mm.
it just
Mm.
like I've said a million times, we have to learn to live with it. Oh, and my last thing, which I've said a little bit, is hold on to hope. Yesterday I went outside to see if there was any sunshine, and there wasn't. Um, One of the things my husband does is he likes to uh, garden, plant seeds, and just see what happens. And one of them is moss roses. And I don't know if you know about moss roses, but they
No.
bloom once,
Oh
like
wow.
flower blooms, and then it dies. And they typically only like hot weather. It's been gray and gloomy and blah. And I went out there yesterday, and there was this lovely little moss rose. So,
Wow.
there's always hope. Even if we
Yeah,
can't see it,
definitely.
there always is hope.
Definitely. Yeah. Oh, that's good. And thank you for sharing your photos as well. That's brilliant, and I appreciate that. And yeah, it's been good to see some of your work as well. So yeah, thanks a lot, dSavannah, and yeah, it's been good to talk. So yeah, brilliant.
Thank you for having me, and hope both of us don't crash too terribly through this.
Yeah, hopefully not.
Thanks.